There's a new beat-em-up game based on the Karate Kid franchise of movies. The first three, anyway. But is it any good? Let's find out. Just so you know where I'm coming from, The Karate Kid is one of my favorite movies. My story is hardly a unique one. As a kid who got bullied in the 80s, Daniel LaRusso showed me not just how to stand up for myself, but how to get to a place where I felt strong enough to do it. I took lessons in Taekwondo and Karate starting at age 8. And while I never won any tournaments, it was enough for me to convince my bullies I was no longer an easy target. In the 80s, almost every movie and TV show you can think of, and some you never will, got a video game, no matter how terribly unsuited to the medium it was. The original Nintendo and the Super Nintendo were flooded with carts of hot garbage purporting to be fun, pixelated adaptations of your favorite movies, like Back to the Future and Ghostbusters. And because I was a kid, I ate it all up. I convinced myself that because I loved those movies, I also loved playing those games, even though most of them were barely even functional. But the 1987 game, titled simply The Karate Kid, is one of the less egregious crimes against the source material. It doesn't look great, because very few NES games do, but it was a reasonable facsimile of the movies within the technical limitations of the time. I wouldn't recommend you play it now, of course. I don't know when exactly the well of movie-inspired games started to dry up. Possibly when video game budgets began to exceed those of the movies they were made to promote. But this kind of thing just disappeared for a while. Over the last 15 years or so, more and more games based on classic, or simply forgotten, properties from film have been coming out. But rather than quick and cheap cash grabs that are closer to marketing than gaming, these newer adaptations make an effort to capture the vibe and experience of the inspiring work in a fun and functional video game. One of the more popular genres, especially for adaptations of action movies, was the side-scrolling beat-em-up. My favorite type of video game, as I have explained in depth elsewhere. Which is how we have arrived here. Playing 2024's Karate Kid Street Rumble, a 16-bit arcade throwback brawler. It loosely adapts the events of the original trilogy into a dozen levels based on locations from the movies. You'll fight Johnny on the beach, Johnny at the Halloween party, and finally Johnny at the tournament. You'll fight that one dude who could not handle getting dumped without taking a hostage. Yikes. And then you'll come back to fight another dude in another tournament. Yeah, Karate Kid 3 was a really boring movie. Street Rumble's best feature by far is the excellent pixelated sprite work. The characters are stylized yet recognizable, and their moves are well animated. But the cutscenes are abominable. Like Wand of Gamelon level awful. So ugly it practically constitutes an assault on the human eye. These scenes do not remotely resemble the source material in any way, and move like some kid's first attempt at a Flash cartoon back in 2009. Street Rumble would only be improved by their absence. Not a lot, but it would help. There are 4 playable characters available at the start. Danny, Mr. Miyagi, Ali Mills, and Kamiko. Each character has a light and strong attack, jump attacks, charge attacks, and of course a special attack that requires you to fill a meter before being deployed. Combat is competent if repetitive, but it has the hitbox problem lots of early 90s brawlers did. Your character needs to be perfectly aligned with the enemy if you want to actually hit them. One pixel higher or lower, and you will miss. Of course, this never seems to affect the bad guys. They can always hit you. And I do mean always. Unlike most other games of the genre, Street Rumble doesn't give the player a single frame of invulnerability when getting up from a knockdown or losing a life. If enough enemies crowd around you, they can just bounce you around like a volleyball while you mash buttons helplessly. The only decent boss fight is when Johnny and his goons, dressed up as skeletons, jump Danny at a Halloween party. You have to take out 3 goons before Johnny can be defeated, but if you take too long to finish him off, he will raise up his henchmen to fight again. It's the only thing I would qualify as clever in this game. The Karate Kid Street Rumble isn't a terrible game. It's functional, it adapts actual scenes from the story. It even has bonus levels where you do things like catch flies with chopsticks or dodge a swinging hammer. Throwbacks to the original game from 1987 that, sadly, only remind the player how little the idea for this game has been improved over the last 30 years. If Street Rumble had come out on the Super Nintendo in 1992, it would have been a great sequel. But in 2026, it is far too late to be anything more than a footnote on the franchise's Wikipedia page. But hey, it's still way better than Space Jam, or Jay and Silent Bob's Mall Brawl. Games that barely resemble games, much less the movies that they borrow their titles from. For the time being, it seems that Scott Pilgrim is the only series producing good movie-based beat-em-ups. I'm really looking forward to playing the new one that just came out. So my final advice is, don't bother with Street Rumble. Just play Scott Pilgrim vs. the World again, because it has finally returned to our digital shelves where it belongs. It's still an absolute blast. In fact, I'm gonna go play some right now. Maybe that'll be my next video.